What's going on everyone, it's Kyle here with another Assassin's Creed video, and as more and more people finish Valhalla's main story, there is continuous debate around the game and the direction it went in. There are some comparisons to Black Flag for example, so I'm going to explain how and why Black Flag managed to accomplish a not so typical AC story, whereas Valhalla didn't quite stick the landing. But before I go any further, I want to reiterate that I loved a lot of what Valhalla offered. As you can see, I've made tons of tribute videos on the game and have really enjoyed making them. So this is not me hating on the game, it's more me praising Black Flag, so please bear that in mind. So it's important to remind everyone that at the time of Black Flag's release we already had 5 very Assassins based stories. Okay, in AC2 and AC3 we were not officially Assassins from the start, but they were all very focused on the Assassins and Templars. So when Black Flag released, it was perfect timing to play as a character in Edward who saw the Templar Assassin feud from a different perspective. He basically stumbled into the war by chance after killing the assassin Duncan Walpole. This in turn begins his arc questioning both factions that we have known from the beginning of the series. First of all, we meet the Templars. He sees the way they behave and what they want in the Caribbean, which is control. And the observatory is the key. Edward even swaps swords with the assassins in an ambush, but after a small payment for the maps and the vials he took from Duncan Walpole, he doesn't see the Templars as a way forward for him, and doesn't really like the way they go about things. And when he meets the assassins, they are not so welcoming due to Edward giving away those maps to the Templars. But it's actually so cool to see them as a mysterious group from an outsider's point of view, especially when Mary Read explains what the creed is all about. Edward takes an interest, especially when Mary Read says nothing is true, everything is permitted. He liked the idea of anything being permitted, and his curiosity went on from there. Now before I go any further into Black Flag, let's talk about Valhalla. Valhalla's release came after years without plan as an assassin. In fact, you have to go back to Syndicate in 2015 where you was last playing as an assassin. But even in Syndicate there was no real brotherhood in the game, so long-time fans were starved of a proper Assassin's Creed story, which includes both Assassins and Templars, the philosophical arguments of what's right and wrong, and that internal conflict as the player. So the first few hours were pretty intriguing, meeting Basim and Hytham the Hidden Ones, being gifted a not so hidden blade and learning their ways like assassinations and the leap of faith. That stuff was nice and good to see in an AC game. Then the stall was set out for the rest of the game, and it was to pacify England for glory and in turn help the Hidden Ones take down the Order of the Ancients. So it was mutually beneficial for all parties. See, that I understood, but what followed was 80 hours of arcs with next to zero Hidden One elements aside from the bureaus, which were pretty damn cool to be fair, but Eivor never really seemed to care about them or take any notice. So they were basically there just so he could get a codex page to give to Hytham while he stared at a wall. And compare that to Edward, who took interest in both factions very early on in the game. Now granted, there is a lot to love about Valhalla like I said earlier, but basically the rest of the game is killing a bunch of targets, 45 in fact, that I never really cared about. Most of which were pretty much nobodies who were laying on a bed or sitting on a bench. I mean, they could have been any Tom, Dick or Harry. And I get that by having all these kinds of people as members of the Order of the Ancients, it's telling the player that the Order runs deep in society. I get that, but I didn't care about killing them. And that's because 1, there were too many of them, and 2, I didn't feel the need for glory nor believe it. If I was a Hidden One however, rather than an Epic Viking, I may have cared about killing them a little bit more. And that is the problem, killing so many targets while remaining as a Viking didn't quite have the same effect as being an assassin or Hidden One would have. Now of course you could argue the same with Edward, with him wanting the observatory for himself so he can sell it and become rich with a fierce reputation. But I would disagree, as the game already sets up the fact that the Templars want the observatory for control. And having played the 5 games previous, I as the player wanted to get to the observatory before the Templars. So any assassinations in the way of the prize like Julian de Cass and Hornigald the bloody traitor makes sense. And because there are fewer assassinations in Black Flag, they had more of an impact. In fact, you can really see the character progression of Edward by watching those confessions back. But during Eivor's confessions, it's just a bit like, oh, you done this wrong, why did you do that to those people sort of thing. Until you defeat Odin and say you don't want glory anymore. Now I quite liked that at the time, and I like the fact that she stopped believing in the Norse gods and Valhalla. But this is an Assassin's Creed game. A massive chunk of the game doesn't explore the hidden ones enough for me. And even with the reveal of King Alfred being the Grand Magister, and the fact that Eivor's assassinations paved the way for a new order, the Templars, I still felt underwhelmed for a game with so little elements of what made the series great. Black Flag on the other hand was a much shorter yet more compelling story in the AC universe. It explored both factions in a way that was true to the series but different and well timed. It gave us a character that was selfish and brash yet realised his mistakes and wanted to make amends. And Mary Read, a member of the Brotherhood, helped him become the man he was by the end of the game. Edward realised that a device as powerful as the Observatory should not be in the hands of anyone, even himself, and especially not the Templars who would have used it to control the population. But at the same time, Torres and Woodes Rogers said that they would only use it for justice, pure justice, so I as a player did actually question if the device would do some good for humanity, despite being in the hands of Templars. And I still ask myself that question today, to be fair. What if the Templars got hold of the device? Would a world without lies be a better place? Maybe. Maybe it would. And then of course the game concluded with one beautiful ending. Yeah, that's one ending by the way, and it just all felt so emotional, it felt right. I just didn't get that feeling after completing Valhalla, especially with there being multiple endings. And yes, there may be some more Hidden One and Templar content in the DLCs, but having a game that's 80 hours at least with minimal Assassin or Hidden One elements and not really divulging into the philosophical arguments that have made the series so beloved was disappointing. Instead, we got a story of 3 Isu gods who spawn back to life at the exact same time to have it out. How did that ever take precedence over an actual Assassin story? It really does bewilder me, and for me Black Flag did a much better job at telling a not so typical AC story. So let me know what you think, like, subscribe, and see you soon.
Cheery bunch of mates you've got.
You deserve scorn, Edward. Prancing about like one of us, bringing shame to our cause.
And what is that? Your cause?
To be blunt, we kill people. Templars and their associates. Folks who'd like to control all the empires on Earth. Claiming it's in the name of peace and order.
Sounds like Decas's dying words.
You see? It's about power, really. About lording over people. Robbing us of liberty.
That another message from one of your friends?
Aye. I'll show you.